Good evening. My name is Mike Fitzgibbons. I'm going to be talking about community, specifically the Carmel community, and that Carmel is where, in my life, I've learned the most about community. I've been a part of great communities my whole life, of course, including my own families, and I went to school at Quigley South in Chicago, which was a great place to go to high school. Visitation Parish and St. Bede the Venerable Parish on the south side of Chicago, Santa Maria del Popolo Parish in Mundelein, St. Mary's of Vernon in Vernon Hills. All are great communities that I have been a part of and I still am a part of, like St. Mary's in Vernon. But really the place where I have learned the most about community is Carmel Catholic High School. 44 years will do that, I guess, to you. If you don't learn something, well, one of the things I've learned a lot about is community, what that word means. It's a buzzword. It's a buzzword in Catholic education. It's a buzzword in all kinds of education. It's a buzzword in the world. And, and I think back on, as I walked my walk through the school and the history of my time at school, I think about the things that led me to believe that I was part of a community, what that word, that it really came alive. I mean, there's so many things that stand out. And if you're going to define what a community does, and you look at what the Catechism of the Church and the leaders of the Church have said, what they'd like to see a Catholic school do in terms of community, one of the things they always say is they'd like to see the students see their own growth spiritually. And they actually see it. They see it physically, they see it educationally, they see it emotionally, and they see it spiritually. Do they actually see it? And there's so many different, just so many different times, different stories. I'm remembering the simple power of a few years ago. We were playing a football game down at Bennett Academy in Lisle. And, in those days, Carmel traveled really well. There were a lot of students. And the game was played on a Saturday night at Benedictine University. And if you know anything about that, Benedictine University College is a college. And they had just, they had one side that is a bleacher, and then the other side, the visitor's side, doesn't have a bleacher. But the side that's a bleacher is it's a college stadium, so you can imagine there's enough room for everybody. They split it in half, and you had the Carmel group on one side and the Bennett group on the other side, and it was pretty crowded. It wasn't packed, but it was really pretty crowded. And a lot of our students were there. A lot of our students traveled down there. And during the game, a Bennett player got hurt pretty badly. And it stopped the game, and you could see it was a problem, and he was on the ground, and the medical staff was there, and they needed to call an ambulance, so both teams weren't quiet on the sideline, and it was and is still the custom at Carmel. Andy Biddle was the head football coach at the time, and I was an assistant, and we as a team prayed on the sideline together for this guy from Bennett. And then if you just listened, because of the silence on the field when the ambulance pulled in, you heard it, just the sound from the bleachers. And frankly, I'll never forget it. I looked up and I could hear the Hail Mary coming from the bleachers. And I was taken aback, and I just thought, well, two Catholic high schools are playing each other. That would be something that could happen. It doesn't always happen, but it did happen, and it was beautiful. What happened after that was what was striking. The next week, I got a call from the head coach, the head football coach at Bennett Academy, and the athletic director, as did Andy, and specifically they wanted to know if I would mind talking to their team mom. And I said no, so she called me. And also then wrote a long, beautiful letter and said basically this, that the Bennett stands was sitting in stunned silence. You know, these moments where parents are sitting together with students and somebody's hurt and no one knows what to say. And the Carmel students came across from where they were standing, the Carmel students, and filtered into the Bennett fans with their hands out and said, "Please join us in prayer." And the Bennett stands stood up and held hands with the Carmel kids, and they prayed the Hail Mary together over and over again. It was still resonating the following year. That boy came to the next year's football game when it was at Carmel, and his family said wonderful things. I was speechless, humbled, and I knew I was part of something special. And that was a few years ago, and that's the way it is, you know. People just go, well, that's the kind of thing happens at Carmel, and it really does. It's not just a sporting event. We, a bunch of years ago, started the all-night prayer vigils for life. We pray for life. In January, while the march is going on in Washington, the March for Life, well, those that can't go, well, we have a 24-hour prayer vigil in our chapel. And what has happened is it's gotten to be kind of habitual that every hour on the hour for 24 hours, we pray the rosary at the top of the hour. And the decades are all led by a student, which would mean there'd have to be a student in the chapel at the time. And that's what's remarkable. I mean, during the school hours, there's no problem with that because classes come down. But it's after hours that make it interesting. We only allow seniors to come from 11 to 5 in the morning, as you can guess why. And where else does something like that become a thing? But that's become a thing, like the thing to do. The last few have been remarkable. I was there this year, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, when you're sitting with 29 seniors, and then at 2, 32 seniors, and they're praying the rosary with you. There's a power to that is rare. And I think that's another one of the things about community. They ask about the flow of grace, and that's such an important term. And I sit in our Brasma Chapel, and I watch these seniors every year, and I mean, they talk about the same things. They visit. They have blankets, they have pajamas, and then they pray. And the prayers are so powerful. And we always pray for life. And I think it's a thing then after 5 to go out to breakfast, whatever. But then there's a new group that comes at 6, and now other kids can come, and they do, and other teachers come. But those hours in the middle of the night for the last bunch of years, they resonate in my soul, and I think about what our church calls for in a Catholic school, and it calls for this community to show this flow of grace, and to me that happens there. This call about the gospel spirit of freedom and love and. Freedom and love. You know, our classes are free, of course, like all high school kids. They're free to do what they will, especially when they have a free period, like lunch. And it's just another thing that became a thing over the years, especially since way back in the 80s, actually. That first week of school is really tough for kids, especially freshmen. They don't know where, some of them come from schools that have 20 graduates, 25 graduates, and there's only 7 or 8 that come to Carmel, or 4 or 5, and they have a different lunch period than all the kids any kids they know. And now you're a freshman and you're in line for food and you buy your food and now you turn around and there's 400 plus kids in a lounge and cafeteria. And where are you going to sit? And they find a seat at the end of a cafeteria table and they just eat as quickly as they can, and then it's off to our information commons, library, sit by themselves there too, and they're just hoping that no one notices that they're sitting alone because, gosh, they feel like they're losers. And invariably, during that first week of school, a few other teachers and I will have seniors report to us, this boy's sitting alone, that girl's sitting alone, can we go take care of that? Like they need permission. And invariably, they do. They go invite that person, and this year, in an unforgettable moment, a boy and his buddy went over to one of these guys, and he was sitting alone, and he said, no, thank you very much, but no, I'm okay. And he was embarrassed. And the senior said, well, okay then. And they went back to the senior table, and they got the rest of the seniors, and the seniors went and sat with them. If you're not going to sit with us, we're going to sit with you. And this boy was beaming. And to me, that's money in the bank. That's what it's all about. That's that gospel spirit of freedom and love that we are called to as a community. And it doesn't only go there. During our masses in our gym, we have the seniors sit on the floor and everyone else sits in the bleachers, and so everyone else is watching the seniors. And it's interesting because, first of all, they sing. The seniors sing. They always sing. And they don't just sing, they sing loudly. And there's a group that sits with me that sings really loudly, but I mean, they all sing. And they pray. And like during the Our Father, their hands are held, and it's impressive and wonderful. And then during the sign of peace, it's just nuts. It's in a wonderful way. And I remember it was just 2 years ago, a priest from another high school was celebrating Mass with us. And I know him pretty well. And after Mass, we walked up and he was changing out of his stuff in our sacristy. And I was going to take him down to the cafeteria to eat. And he said, quote, Fitz, come in now. How do you do it? How do you do what? How do you do it? How do you get them to sing like that? How do you get them to pray like that? How do you get them to pay attention? They're all paying attention. And I said, I don't get them to do anything. He said, Fitz, everybody in that gym is locked in. I said, well, it probably starts, our faculty and staff do a great job being locked in. And they dive in, and I think the students appreciate that. I think our seniors, by the time they're seniors, like I said, that whole growth thing earlier, by the time our seniors, they're locked in. And the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors learn that pretty quick. Because because before they're seniors, they can't wait to get on the floor. They want to be sitting on the floor. Not only because they're seniors, because that's where it's at. They think that's where it's at for the masses, and it's just a wonderful thing. Praying like that with 1,500 people, that's an experience, and it's an experience of great community. And there are a lot of days that we finish a Mass with I Send You Out, the song I Send You Out, and I mean, the place rocks. It's nuts. It's like the best thing. It's so inspiring. It would pick anybody up on a day you were down. And I think that's what community is supposed to do. Even since this whole COVID-19 thing began, this is tough stuff, uncharted territory. Really, really, really difficult stuff. And our seniors know their prom is gone, and they don't know. They might not go back to school. There's a lot riding here, and that's not going to be easy for all of us. And how's our community responded? All of our students. Well, we have this Corsairs Pray on Instagram. every night at 8 o'clock. And there's hundreds of followers now already, and there's more every day. And then they just can read about it through the day. And then at 8 o'clock, there's a special prayer right before 8. They accept intentions, and there's over 50 kids listening to that every night at 8 o'clock. Now, come on, which is amazing to me. You know, they're home. Their responsibilities in terms of school, yes, they had to have the stuff in at 8 o'clock, but I mean, their responsibilities are over with, and yet, boom, they want to lock back in to their classmates in their school. And then the Carmel Digital Network, our kids doing these announcements, it's amazing. And they're still doing it, and they're sending out emails. We even have the weather guy doing the weather, and you can lock into that too. And I mean, all these things they're reaching to make sure the community they've helped build is still being built. It's great stuff. Carmel Catholic High School is a great community, and I've learned a lot about community from that. Thanks for your time.